Sunday morning in May 1870, a man walked out of a cottage in Buckinghamshire. What he left inside shocked an entire village. The cottage belonged to the village blacksmith, Emmanuel Marshall. He lived there with his wife Charlotte, his mother Mary, who was 77, and their 4 children. That week, there was one more. Emmanuel's sister Mary Ann had come back to Denham to be married from the family home, and on the Saturday they all walked into Uxbridge for the market, buying things for the wedding. Emmanuel was a local man. His family had moved to Denham when he was a baby, and he'd worked his way up from shop boy to engine fitter to blacksmith. By 1870 he had the forge, a cottage beside it, and a reputation in the village as a decent and well-liked man. The smithy stood detached from the house, a few steps across the yard. The cottage was small, and with Mary Ann in it, there was one more grown woman than it was built for. To make the room, the 4th child, Francis William, who was 2, had been sent over to his grandparents in Uxbridge. On the Friday morning, the day before that trip to Uxbridge, a Buckinghamshire police constable named Charles Taverner was out on duty when a stranger stopped him. The man was wearing a deerstalker hat, a cord jacket, and a red and white checked neckerchief. He made a strange remark about having seen a man threatening to throw his wife into the canal. Then he asked the constable for directions to the Marshall house. Taverner told him, and the man walked on. The man's name was John Owen. He also went by Jones and by Jenkins, depending on who was asking. He'd been born in Northamptonshire, the son of a tailor, and at 18, he'd been apprenticed to a blacksmith. That's the detail that explains everything that follows, because it meant he and Emmanuel Marshall were in the same trade. Owen had worked for Marshall. He'd made a bad job of it, and Marshall had refused to pay him. By 1870, Owen had a long record of petty theft in and around London, and he'd been in and out of prison for years. When he came out the last time, he told a prison warder that he wasn't going back. He said a blacksmith owed him money, and that if he didn't get it, he'd have the man's blood. That Saturday night, Owen was lodging in Uxbridge with a bricklayer named Charles Coombs. At some point in the dark, he slipped out and walked the few miles to Denham. He went to the smithy first, probably for something to steal, possibly for something to swing. Emmanuel came out. He may have been woken by the noise, or he may have been getting up early to put in an hour before Sunday started. He crossed the yard, stepped through the smithy door, and was hit once with his own sledgehammer. The side of his head was driven in. He died instantly. The reporting at the time says he screamed once and never struggled. Then Owen walked out of the smithy and in through the front door of the cottage. He met Charlotte in the doorway. She'd heard something and got up, and she'd thrown a dress on over her nightclothes. He killed her there. Mary Ann came out behind her in her nightdress. He killed her too. Then he went through the rest of the house. The grandmother, 77 years old, and the 3 girls, aged 8, 6, and 4, who by then understood exactly what was happening and were trying to get out through the back kitchen. He killed all of them. Every one of them died of blows to the head. A sledgehammer, an axe, and a poker were used. Afterwards, he tried to hide the children's bodies. There was 20 pounds in that cottage. Mary Ann's wedding money, drawn out to pay for the day. He never found it. What he did find was clothing. He went back out to the smithy and took the boots and trousers off Emmanuel's body, then went in and took a coat and other things, 2 watches, a chain, and a few coins of silver. He left his own clothes behind on the floor, soaked through. The deerstalker, the cord jacket, the red and white checked neckerchief, and then he walked out onto the road in a dead man's clothes. 100 yards along, he met a woman who lived nearby. She looked at him and took him for Emmanuel Marshall because she recognized the clothes. She called him Marshall. He told her the family had gone away for a fortnight. She had no reason to doubt it, and he said goodbye and went on his way. He went back to Uxbridge. Coombs took one look at him and remarked on the change of clothes, and Owen said he'd been to see his brother, who'd given them to him, along with the watch. That night he stayed in a brothel there, where he pulled a loaded pistol on the women in the house, told them he could do for the lot of them, and spent hours trying the doors of their rooms with it in his hand. The next day he pawned the stolen chain for 30 shillings. The pawnbroker told him it was gold and worth a great deal more than that. He took the 30 shillings anyway, and the Marshalls lay in their cottage all through Sunday and into Monday, because nobody had any reason to call. The person who found them was a dressmaker who came up the path to deliver Mary Ann's wedding dress. Constable Taverner was one of the first there. His statement is plain enough. The doors were standing open. 2 bodies, the wife and the sister, lay just inside the front door with a petticoat thrown over them, and a sledgehammer covered in blood about 2 feet away. In the wash house he found the 3 children and an axe, also covered in blood. He wrote that there were extensive wounds to all their heads. Emmanuel was in the forge, face down, his arms stretched out in front of him, and then Taverner would have seen the clothes on the floor, the deerstalker, the cord jacket, the checked neckerchief, the clothes of the man he'd given directions to on Friday morning. Superintendent Thomas Dunham came out from Slough that evening and took charge. Meanwhile, in Uxbridge, Charles Coombs had gone to his employer to say that he didn't like the look of what his lodger had been doing. They arrested Owen at the Oxford Arms on Silver Street in Reading. Dunham walked into the kitchen at the back of the pub, where a dozen or so people were sitting, and Coombs pointed straight at him. Before anybody had told him why they were there, Owen said he had never murdered man, woman, or child. Dunham told him he was charged with murdering 7 people and named Emmanuel Marshall. Owen said he hadn't murdered anyone, but he knew who had. Then Coombs pointed out that he was standing there in the dead man's boots and the dead man's clothes. Owen said, "That may well be." In his pocket they found pawn tickets for Marshall's watch and Marshall's waistcoat, and both pawnbrokers picked him out. 1,000 people lined the road to Reading Station to watch him taken away and hissed at him the whole length of it. He came before the magistrates at Slough on the 24th of May, which was the day Mary Ann should have been married. He was tried at Aylesbury on the 21st of July in front of Barron Channel. It took a single day. His defense was that a man wearing a dead man's clothes is not necessarily the man who killed him. The jury didn't need long. William Calcraft hanged him on the 8th of August, 1870, at 8 in the morning. He denied it to the end. The village said afterwards that in his last days he'd slept 2 nights in the coffin he was going to be buried in, and that he'd threatened to hit the hangman for not coming to see him, though those stories come down as village talk rather than record. Thousands of people came to the funeral at St. Mary the Virgin in Denham. The family were buried together, and a large tombstone went up over them with all 7 of them named on it: Emmanuel, Charlotte, Emmanuel's mother Mary, his sister Mary Ann, 32, and the 3 girls, Mary 8, Thirza 6, Gertrude 4, which leaves the boy. Francis William Marshall was 2 years old and asleep at his grandparents' house in Uxbridge on the night his entire family was killed, and he was only there because his aunt had come home to get married. He was raised by those grandparents. He shows up on the 1881 census, 12 years old, living with them at Rockingham Road. He died in 1886 of tuberculosis. He was 18. They buried him with his family at Denham, but his name isn't on the stone because the stone is for the 7 who died that night, and he wasn't one of them. So he's in the ground with all of them in the same plot, with nothing to say he was ever there.